Who is the best screenwriter of all time? That's the question Vulture.com posed to more than 40 working screenwriters as the basis for this list. Familiar names like Quentin Tarantino, Francis Ford Coppola, and Joel and Ethan Coen all made the top 5, but number 1 went to a name you might not have heard: Billy Wilder.
I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. I wanna be loved by you alone.
So who is Billy Wilder and why is he so respected? Well, in a career spanning over 50 years, Wilder made more than 60 films. He's most well known for these 4: Double Indemnity, Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, and The Apartment. What's instantly apparent about them is how different they all are, ranging from hard-boiled film noir to slapstick comedy, dramedies, and classic tragedy. Versatility was Billy Wilder's greatest strength, although I'll also point out that he often worked with co-writers, usually Charles Brackett or IAL Diamond. He made some of the funniest comedies and some of the darkest dramas you'll ever see.
When I do a cynical one, they say, well, when are you going to do a funny one again? When I do a funny one, they say, what about those wonderful cynical things you did there?
And what kind of story do you prefer, cynical or funny?
A good one.
But to talk about Billy Wilder's storytelling style and to figure out what makes him so versatile, I think it's useful to talk about the artist he most admired. That's this man, Ernst Lubitsch. Famous for his comedies, Ernst had what Wilder and many others would come to call the Lubitsch Touch.
I wonder if you could explain what the Lubitsch Touch is. Lubitsch Touch.
Lubitsch Touch, yes. Yeah. Well, that's if I could explain it, this is like if I knew the formula, I would patent it. But now, if you have a class of students, writers, let us say, or directors, and you say, I would like you to dramatize the following situation. There is a king and there's a queen, and there is a lieutenant. The king is played by George Barbier, a very opulent fat actor. Now dramatize the situation that the queen has an affair with the lieutenant and the king finds out. Now do it your way, do it any way you want to, and those 100 students who are very good at comedy, very good, they're very imaginative, they go out and they come back a week later and they will all have good solutions. Amusing, maybe a little long, maybe they're a little too explicit, maybe too censorable, but nobody in the world could come up with a better solution than Mr. Lubitsch does. Here's his solution. You open up in the bedroom of the king and the queen, and as he leaves the bedroom, we see that at the door with a sword standing there and clicking his heels is Maurice Chevalier. And he's now watching the king, and the king is going down some steps. Now we cut back to Mr. Chevalier, and he sees that the king is leaving, and he now enters the bedroom of the queen. The door is closed. You don't cut into the bedroom. Now, as the king is descending, he suddenly sees that he forgot the belt and the sword. He turns around, and he goes up the steps, back into the bedroom. Now we have a situation going. The door closes. We are still outside. We're never inside. Now the king comes out, and he's got the belt, and he's got with the sword, right? And he is smiling. And suddenly he tries to put it on, and it's not his belt. It's much too small for her.
Now, there are a lot of conflicting definitions for the Lubitsch Touch, but what's important here is how Wilder viewed it. Wilder has elsewhere described the Lubitsch Touch as the joke within the joke, and many others have tried to define it over the years. But what I think appeals to Wilder about Lubitsch's films is the attempt to wring as much as possible out of every moment, and to do so in subtle, creative, and surprising ways. I think you can find the influence of the Lubitsch Touch across Wilder's films, not just in his comedy scenes, but his dramatic ones too, like this one from The Apartment. The premise of this movie is that the protagonist, Mr. Baxter, is loaning out his apartment to his bosses as a place for their extramarital affairs in order to curry favor with them and move up the corporate ladder. In this part of the movie, it works out for him. He gets a promotion. But there's a problem. Now, let's imagine this like an assignment, the same way Wilder broke down the Lubitsch scene. The assignment is to write a scene where one character learns the woman he loves is dating his boss. How do we do it? Well, he could have just run into them at the apartment, or someone could have just told him. That would have worked, but Wilder could do better. Here's his solution. Mr. Baxter will find something left behind in his apartment, a broken pocket mirror, which he correctly assumes to be one of his boss's mistresses, so he returns it to his boss. Later, when talking about his promotion with Miss Kuberlik, this happens.
You're firm. I don't want people to think I'm an entertainer.
What's the matter?
The script could have had Mr. Baxter recognize the mirror when he found it, but by putting it here, everything is heightened. It happens at the moment of his victory, so we go from the highest high to the lowest low. And it happens because of his victory. She hands him the mirror so that he can see how he looks in his new hat, a hat he buys to celebrate the promotion. It happens in her presence, making the scene much more emotional because he can't say what he feels. And here's the kicker, the real Lubitsch Touch moment. They're interrupted by a phone call from Baxter's boss, who wants the apartment again that night to meet with Miss Kuberlik, and Baxter is forced to make the arrangements that will perpetuate the affair he just found out about, and which has dashed his chances at love. It was funny enough that the king finds out about his wife's affair. The belt makes it even funnier. It's tragic enough that Baxter learns that Kuberlik is his boss's mistress. The phone call makes it even more humiliating. It's like a Russian nesting doll of sadness. The idea of the Lubitsch Touch and Wilder's work in general is a reminder not to stop at good, but to invent unique ways of portraying common situations and to build scenes that accomplish more than one thing at a time. And that's all without mentioning this brilliant character-revealing line.
The mirror, it's broken.
Yes, I know. I like it that way. Makes me look the way I feel.
Yeah, Wilder is really good at dialogue. I mean, poor Miss Kuberlik. I don't think I've ever encountered a character where I laugh every time I feel sorrier for her.
How could I be so stupid? I think I would have learned by now. When you're in love with a married man, you shouldn't wear mascara.
In fact, that's really Wilder's speciality, using comedy to deepen moments of drama and vice versa. Sure, we could cut a line through his filmography and say that each film is one or the other, but they're all hybrids to some degree. They're often both in the same moment.
We don't want to share this night with other people. This is for you and me.
Oh?
Hold me tighter.
Okay.
Sunset Boulevard is a dark and tragic tale, but it's also a biting satire of the movie industry, even though the characters don't know they're being funny.
I'd always heard that you had some talent.
That was last year. This year I'm trying to earn a living.
The main character, Gillis, a hack writer who leeches off of a deluded former film star Norma Desmond, is constantly commenting on the absurdity of his situation.
How could she breathe in that house so crowded with Norma Desmonds?
He's honest about how depressing Hollywood and life after fame is, and that's precisely why it's funny.
Last one I wrote was about Okies in the Dust Bowl. You'd never know, because when it reached the screen, the whole thing played on a torpedo boat.
This is to be a very important picture. I've written it myself, took me years.
Looks like enough for 6 important pictures. Sometimes it's interesting to see just how bad writing can be.
You think this is all very funny?
A little.
Double Indemnity is regarded as one of the first film noirs, made before that term even existed. It's a dark film about greed and betrayal, but even it will crack you up.
I've been trying to contact your husband for the past 2 weeks, but he's never in his office.
Is there anything I can do?
The insurance ran out on the 15th. I'd hate to think of you having a smashed fender or something while you're not fully covered.
Now, everything we've talked about so far has been about Wilder's tonal mastery and his ability to craft effective scenes. And there's certainly much more to be said about this, but that doesn't really strike at the heart of what makes Billy Wilder such a great filmmaker and screenwriter. It doesn't talk about the beating heart of humanity in his films. To do so, I think we have to start with this moment from Some Like It Hot.
That's good. I'm gonna level with you. We can't get married at all. Why not? Well, in the first place, I'm not a natural blonde. Doesn't matter. I smoke. I smoke all the time. I don't care. I can never have children. We can adopt some. But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
Wilder originally wrote that line as a placeholder until something better came along, but then he realized it was the perfect punchline, and not just because it's funny, but because it sums up his body of work.
I think it speaks to Wilder's humanity and some things that he was thinking beyond just the silly comedy, and that is that Joey Brown is someone who loves no matter what. Literally. It doesn't matter all these things. It doesn't even matter you're a man. I love you. So here Wilder is essentially saying the most transgressive thing of all is unconditional love. It's so outrageous that we laugh.
Wilder chose to write about some pretty despicable people, especially for his time. He made most of his films during the Hays Code era in Hollywood, which censored how topics like murder and adultery could be portrayed on screen. So as murderers and adulterers, the characters of Double Indemnity have to be punished for their crimes. But even here, Wilder finds compassion. The original ending of the film was going to be a scene where Walter Neff is executed for his crimes. But Wilder thought this was too dour a note to end on and decided to end the film here, with Neff collapsing from his wounds. Now, Neff was an insurance salesman who conspired with Mrs. Diedrichson to have her husband killed so that they could collect the insurance money. Things went wrong when Neff's boss and friend Keyes gets suspicious. But the film isn't as punitive towards Neff as it would have otherwise been with the original ending. Instead, there is a moment of forgiveness between them.
You know why you couldn't figure this one, Keyes? I'll tell you. Because the guy you were looking for was too close. He was right across the desk from you.
Closer than that, Walter.
I love you too.
Wilder would later say that it ends almost like a love story, and he's right. It ends exactly like one of his love stories. Here's the final shot from The Apartment, and the final shot from Some Like It Hot. The framing is identical. Two characters facing the camera, a renewed love between them. Walter Neff did horrible things, but you know what?
Nobody's perfect.
And the film embraces those flaws, because despite them, Neff is still human, still capable of love, and of being loved. There's a similar conflict of emotions at the end of Sunset Boulevard, where Norma is being carted away to jail, but her husband, who has stood by her no matter what, lets her have one more delusional moment in the spotlight. Because, well, he loves her unconditionally. Wilder's characters are usually people who have been chewed up by life, people caught in the jaws of institutions. Mr. Baxter is a lowly cog in the machine at an insurance company. Gillis can't catch a break in Hollywood. Joe and Jerry are penniless musicians on the run from the mob. All of them try to cut corners in life to get ahead, but in each of these films, love is presented as the way out, a reason to atone and do the right thing. Wilder has a reputation for creating cynical movies that seem to show all the flaws and monstrous sides of people, but when I walk away from his films, I don't leave with the message that people are terrible, but that nobody's perfect, and that's okay. So why is Billy Wilder the greatest screenwriter ever? Because he could do comedy, he could do drama, he could do romance, he could do all of them at once in a single scene. His dialogue was always sharp, revealing, and working double duty. His films are surprising, provocative, and essential viewing. But most of all, they've got big emotions that feel as fresh today as they did 50 or 60 years ago. Nobody's perfect, not even Wilder. He had plenty of flops in his day, but these four, perfection.
Diddly 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 dum, boop boopy doop.
Oh man, that was a hard video to make, so I hope you guys liked it, and let me know in the comments below. But you know what isn't hard? Making a website with Squarespace. How about that for a segue? But seriously, if you need a domain, website, or online store, Squarespace is the place to do it, since you don't need to know how to code to make a beautiful site. As you may know, I use Squarespace to make my website, justwritemedia.com, and one thing that was great about the process was how easy it was to set up an email newsletter. If you head over to my site, you can enter your email here for monthly updates on all of the videos and blogs that I'm making, and keep up to date with what I'm doing. If you're building your own website, start your free trial today by going to squarespace.com and go to squarespace.com/justwrite to get 10% off your first purchase. Of course, one thing that really helps keep me going when these videos get tough is the support of my fabulous patrons on Patreon. Many thanks to them for supporting this channel, and if you want to help keep these videos on writing going, head over to patreon.com/justwrite to do so. Thanks everyone, and keep writing.